Good morning, friends. MikesMMAPicks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We're here for UFC Vegas 24 where we have Kelvin-Gastelum taking on Robert Whittaker. This is a fight that's been in the making for a number of years. We've got 11 fights. Only 3 of these fights are favored to currently end inside the distance. So let's get right to it, folks. Get you on your merry way throughout the rest of your day here. So first fight of the night, we've got Tony Gravely coming in here as a significant favorite, taking on Anthony Birchak. Anthony Birchak has been around the game for a long time. He's made Thomas Almeida's highlight reel. Birchak coming in with a price tag of $6,800 in DraftKings. On the other side of the fight, you've got Tony Gravely, who has the wrestling in his back pocket, has the gas tank, has the durability. We've seen him in previous bouts run up against some challenges in regards to the submission defense department, but take a deeper look, my friends, and you'll see that Tony Gravely has fought some excellent grapplers. So do not hold that against him. I think he comes out here and puts on a show against Anthony Birchak. Birchak, in my eyes, on his last legs here in the promotion, could get a fluky sub here. Birchak does have a ground game. Came from a high-level wrestling background in Arizona, though. Give me Tony Gravely to walk away with the victory in this spot. Second fight of the night, where we have a couple of former LFA fighters. We've got Austin Hubbard coming in at -190 at the bidding window with a price tag of $8,900 in DraftKings, taking on Dakota Harry Bush. I'm not joking around. That is his moniker. Coming in as a +150 underdog and a DraftKings price of $7,300. This fight does take place at lightweight. Bush, you watch his previous bouts, has been put in some tough spots early. You go back and watch the switch that he was able to hit against him in LFA. Hubbard, more well-rounded fighter in this spot, comes from a better camp. He has a lot more to offer, especially if things go deeper into the fight. I know Dakota Bush is going to try to find the back of Austin Hubbard like he's done in previous bouts, and we know that Austin Hubbard is susceptible to having his back taken. Look at Joe Selecki, look at Davi Ramos. There's been other fighters. I mean, those are high-level grapplers. Dakota Bush, I do not rate him extremely high. I'll be picking Austin Hubbard to win this bout via decision. You look at the odds on this fight going to a decision. They currently sit at -155. I'm going to be picking Austin Hubbard in that spot. Third fight of the night, where we have a fighter with his job on the line right here. We've got Gerald Meerschaert coming in as a -115 fighter at the betting window with a DraftKings price of $7,900. So you do have a little bit of value as far as that DraftKings price goes, though he is taking on a fighter with a viable path to victory. Bartosz Fabinski also coming in at -115 with a price tag of $8,300 in DraftKings. This fight plays out two ways. I either see Fabinski grinding Meerschaert out for the better part of 3 rounds, or we have Meerschaert coming in and locking up a submission. Meerschaert has been a fighter who has survived an early onslaught in many of his bouts and has come back. Fabinski's not going to be... He's not a threat on the feet. He's going to try to force the wrestling, and Meerschaert's got to know that's coming. So I slightly lean Meerschaert to lock up a submission, though you never want to really bank on someone who's going to end up on their back for significant portions of the fight. So give me Gerald Meerschaert to win this fight via submission, and his job is on the line. If he doesn't win here, I think he gets cut from the promotion. So give me Gerald Meerschaert. Next up, we have a veteran of the game, Jessica Penne. Man, she's been around for quite some time. Last submission victory for Penne was back in 2013. We've seen her beaten and battered throughout the years. She is coming back. Last time we saw her fight was 2017. Plus 230, underdog, $7,000. She is the better grappler in this spot. Does have a ground game, taking on a Penne-Godinez who, wow, very impressive fighter with a boxing pedigree as well as a wrestling background. Minus 285 for the newcomer. Does not have many fights on her professional record, 5-0. She was in there against Demopoulos in LFA and beat the champ to a bloody pulp, though Godinez did get split open at the end of that fight. Very crisp striking from Godinez. Godinez is going to look to really put it on Penne here and stay close. But she also has to avoid being taken down. Part of what we've seen in lower level MMA is these fighters come in and they look great on tape and then they get put on their back and they can't get up. And that is a problem. Godinez, we haven't seen her on her back for significant lengths of time here. She's taking on a fighter in Penne who comes from a solid camp, and there is a chance that Penne does land some takedowns here and holds Godinez down. But I like what I've seen from Godinez, and I'm going to be buying here. I like Godinez to win this fight, though minus 285 is a steep price tag for someone who hasn't proven it under the bright lights. I mean, you could say she's gotten the job done under the bright lights of LFA, but inside of the UFC octagon, inside of the Apex, the smaller octagon, that is the place where champions are born and made. And Godinez, I'm not going to go out and say that she's a future champ, but I will say that it is worth taking a look at the, I believe it's plus 475, Godinez inside the distance line. Take a look at her TKO line as well. That's in play. Penne has been taken out of there by Jessica Andrade and other fighters. I'm not saying Godinez is Jessica Andrade, but she does pack a punch, and she has she doesn't have as well-rounded a game as Andrade. But I like what I've seen as far as Godinez goes. So give me Godinez to win this fight. Penne, though, the old vet, could hang around. Next up, wow. Better make sure the octagon door is secured for this bout, where we have Alexander Romanov taking on Juan Espino. Espino plus 115 at the betting window. Price tag of $7,400. Look at that odds value if you're playing DraftKings. This is a heavyweight bout, so anybody can be taken out with one punch. Espino does not have many TKOs or knockouts on his resume, and he's going to be looking for a submission here against Romanov, who is an undefeated fighter, and I mean, he has supreme power and physicality. Really, that's what it comes down to. He's going to be looking to suplex Espino all over the mat like he does in previous bouts. I don't see this playing out on the feet for very long. I see these guys grappling early and often. Minus 145 for Romanov, 8,800 in DraftKings. This is a dangerous fight. If Romanov ends up getting control time on top, he could potentially be susceptible to getting swept at some point. Espino is a legitimate threat as far as the grappling goes, and I'm not counting Espino out in this bout. The couple of things, though, Espino has going against him are his age and the physicality. There's a clear difference in physicality here. Romanov is the fighter I'll be picking to win, though Espino is the much more technically refined fighter, probably coming out there with a better game plan. Romanov, he's rather unconventional. He has no qualms completely emptying his tank, and that's where things could potentially get sketchy the later this fight goes. We may see Espino lock up a submission the longer this fight goes, but I'll be picking Romanov. By the way, this fight, you look at the fight ends inside the distance line, and it's actually shrunk, come down to about minus 240 or so. One thing, I think that's a testament to Romanov's durability. He's a banger. He is tough to submit, man. This guy will muscle out of positions in a similar fashion to Derek Lewis. And Espino's going to really have to lock up a heavy submission and stick to Romanov to pull it off. So it's a very dangerous spot. I'll be picking Romanov to win, though. Next up, where we have a fighter who missed weight in Tracy Cortez, coming in with the price tag of minus 310, $9,000 in DraftKings, a grappling heavy fighter who's coming down a weight class, missed weight, really got sucked out on the scales, taking on Justine Kish, who has not looked... She's not looked well in previous bouts. Mazo, etc., have run a train on her from a grappling standpoint. Plus 240, 7,200 for Justine Kish. Kish is going to look to stay at range and pepper Tracy Cortez. Cortez, this is going to come down to footwork in my eyes. I think we're going to see Cortez really sell out to get this fight to the mat. The fight-ready training that she has over in Scottsdale could potentially pay off in this spot. Kish, if this was in the larger octagon, I think we'd see Kish and the odds of this fight change significantly. Though there isn't going to be much room to evade. And Cortez she's pretty slick about closing distance. So I'll be picking Cortez in this spot. I think she clearly has the grappling edge. And it's a matter of, did the weight cut drain Tracy Cortez? That could potentially be an issue in this spot. She's the clearly has the better wrestling, has the better jiu-jitsu, has the better grappling. She's not a fish out of water on the feet, but I do not want to see fighters falling in love with their stand-ups, grapplers especially. Stick to your bread and butter and what got you to the big show. Give me Tracy Cortez in this spot. Though that weight cut may have caught her. There are no certainties in this game. Justine Kish could potentially be live in this spot. Next up, we head to the men's lightweight division, where we have Luis Pena taking on Alex Munoz. Alex Munoz coming in at 7,500 plus 120 underdog. Luis Pena, tough fighter to trust. Luis Pena, man, submitted by Kama Worthy last time out. Was supposed to take on Drakkar Klose. That fight fell out. In this spot, you've got Munoz, who's coming in as a wrestler, going to come in to really overwhelm and be the more physical fighter against Luis Pena, who's been susceptible to being out-muscled in spots despite having length. You see the Matt Frivola fight. I think we're going to see Munoz try to come in and implement a similar game plan. Munoz, we've seen him on the Contender Series work that game plan to a T. Luis Pena, though, is the better striker, does have a solid gas tank, the sharper fighter. more highly skilled fighter, fighting out of ATT. This is a guy who people held him up on a pedestal. This is a time to come out and perform. I don't have faith in Luis Pena, but I'll be picking him to win. Alex Munoz, this is your shot, man. You've got a opponent who has holes in his game, who's been mentally defeated at times, who looked sucked out on the scales like he does just about every time out. So Alex Munoz, this is your fight to prove everybody wrong and show that you deserve to be at this level. But I'll be picking Luis Pena. I think that Luis Pena is the higher caliber fighter, and that's what it's going to come down to down the stretch. But I could potentially see this turning into a split decision. Next up, wow, you have Abdul Razak Alhassan, who he has fallen over the past few times out. This is somebody who came in with a head of steam to the organization, was blowing folks out of the water with a judo background. You don't hear about his judo background anymore. Minus 300 favorite. DraftKings price of 9,300, and he's fighting on a bottom of the barrel opponent here in Jacob Malkoun, who is in the organization due to Robert Whittaker, and Malkoun coming in with a DraftKings price of only 6,900. This fight's taking place at 185 pounds. Alhassan is going to throw the kitchen sink at Malkoun. He knows no other way in his bouts. He's going to empty the gas tank like he always does. Malkoun, is he going to be able to survive? That is the biggest question. If Alhassan cannot get Malkoun out of there, then he's live. That's really what this is all about. I am going to be picking Alhassan to win this fight inside the distance. I think his hands are too heavy. And Phil Hawes and Alhassan are different fighters. I would like to see those two lock horns inside the octagon and see who ends up coming out on top. Alhassan looked great on the scales. Did not look out of sorts at the middleweight division, but let's see what happens when he steps inside of that octagon. I'll be picking Abdul Razak Alhassan to win and win viciously inside the distance. Next up, we have heavyweights, where we have the return of Chase Sherman, who is coming in as a minus 110 price tag and 7,700, taking on Andrei Arlovski, who there isn't much value to be had if you're playing DraftKings at 8,500 with a minus 110 price at the betting window. Andrei Arlovski, 50 professional fights under his belt. Chase Sherman cannot shake a stick at Andrei Arlovski's competition level. Sherman does not move his head off the center line, is going to come out and look to bang. He does not have a ground game whatsoever. Arlovski, it's a matter of, is he going to get caught? He fought Ospinal last time out and hung in there for a couple of rounds. In this fight, these odds, you're seeing folks buy into that Arlovski is washed. I rarely pick Arlovski, and I'll be picking him in this spot. I have no faith in Chase Sherman. He's coming in off of a USADA suspension and he did look different on the scales yesterday. I think we did see the results of somebody coming off of PEDs, though that may not translate in the cage. Sherman is going to come in there looking to take Andrei Arlovski's head off. Could potentially do so, but I'll be picking Andrei Arlovski to win, and it's just a matter of, is Arlovski going to go for it? Sherman is probably going to empty his tank, and Arlovski could end inside the distance. He typically is prone to going the distance, Arlovski, in many of his fights, but I see him finishing Chase Sherman here. Next up, we have a fighter who's coming up to lightweight, Jeremy Stephens, who looked great on the scales, taking on Drakkar Klose. Drakkar Klose minus 105 at the betting window with a DraftKings price of 7,800. Jeremy Stephens minus 125, DraftKings price of 8,400. Fascinating bout here, where we have Jeremy Stephens, who's suffered, I believe, 18 professional losses. Watch Jeremy Stephens' interviews for his pre-fight interviews. This guy is never at a loss for confidence. He's lost how many? Let me see here. He's lost 5. He's 5-9 over his last 14 fights, and he's fought the who's who at featherweight, coming up against Drakkar Klose, who has left MMA Lab, and he's been training with Michael Johnson and Sean O'Malley, etc. If Drakkar Klose stayed with MMA Lab, I'd be more apt. I'd be heavier on him in this spot. I think that we are going to have a banger in this fight. Jeremy Stephens out of Alliance with Dom Cruz. I think that Del Fiero, he puts together solid game plans. You watch against last time out in Jeremy Stephens' last fight, he was winning the opening rounds against our friend from Boston, who was completely annihilated and may never come back after the brutal beating to Max Holloway. But Jeremy Stephens looks good and can stay composed for some time. I want to see Josh Emmett rematch Jeremy Stephens. Josh Emmett deserves that fight before his career is over. I know Josh Emmett is a much higher ranked fighter at this stage in his career, but I did not like what I saw out of Jeremy Stephens landing to the back of the head, and then that brutal finish of Josh Emmett. Thank goodness he was able to come back in that spot. But Drakkar Klose should be coming out looking to land leg kicks early in this spot, looking to stay tough. Stay in Jeremy Stephens' face, force the action. Jeremy Stephens is going to engage in a firefight. It's just a matter of who sinks and who swims. And you watch Drakkar Klose survive the opening round against Benny Dariush, put Dariush in some trouble in their fight, and then boom, was dropped and finished. I'm going to be picking Drakkar Klose here. I think that there's a lot of mileage on Jeremy Stephens in this spot. Jeremy Stephens, if this fight, Drakkar Klose is not going to be dropping to featherweight, but I'm not sure if Jeremy Stephens is going to be able to carry that power up here, and I'll be picking Drakkar Klose in this fight. Next up, we have the main event of the evening, where we have Robert Whittaker taking on Kelvin-Gastelum. This is a fight that has been rebooked. Robert Whittaker suffered the abdominal injury and was pulled from the bout last time. These guys were matched up. Last time out, I was more apt to pick Kelvin-Gastelum. I believe that in this spot, it's interesting. A few years later, how both of these fighters have suffered some losses. Whittaker to Adesanya has been in there. Those fights against Romero were life changers. And then you have Kelvin-Gastelum, who was also in there against Adesanya, and he took a life-changing beating in that fight. Gastelum took the loss to Darren Till. Both of these guys have a number of mutual opponents, but MMA math does not make sense. And you have Gastelum coming in as a plus 215 underdog. I believe that price tag is wide. I don't think that that Gastelum should be that big of an underdog in this spot. At 7,100, Gastelum hangs around, man, and he's got that piston of a left hand. And at middleweight, it only takes, with these fighters, Whittaker can throw a 2 or 3 punch combination and put Gastelum in trouble. Whittaker's coming in here as the larger fighter. Pretty wide line here. DraftKings price of 9,100. This fight, we are going to see Whittaker does throw for volume. And he, believe it or not, has a ground game. So does Gastelum, though. And I like that Gastelum has stuck with Master Rafael Cordero. I don't think the leg kicks are going to be there for Gastelum. We're not going to see many yes. And Whittaker, I see him getting off to an early start here. Gastelum looking to pick his spots, land the 1-2, and Gastelum could potentially catch Whittaker at some point during this fight, but the more likely outcome in this spot, in my eyes, you watch the Cannonier fight, Whittaker can stay completely in the zone, in his moment, in a state of flow. And if he's able to do that, he's the better fighter in this spot. He's the larger fighter. He's the fighter with a phenomenal gas tank who can go all 5 rounds. Gastelum, he did look great on the scales, and he is live here. There's no doubt he's a live underdog in this spot. But I'll be picking Robert Whittaker to win, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Whittaker overwhelm Gastelum at some point during the fight. I could see him winning via decision, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Whittaker end up finishing Gastelum. And inside of the smaller octagon, there's less place to stay evasive. So these fighters at times will be in a phone booth trading. And these boys are heavy hitters. So want to thank everybody for tuning in. While we're here, if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. We've got a great fight, great card ahead of us this evening. It's going to be a phenomenal night. Third party tracked. You can follow me on Twitter at MikesMMAPicks. Check out my plays at MMA Oddsbreaker Premium. And onward and upward, my friends. One card at a time. Go get what's yours. Enjoy the fights, and take care.